Exactly. And that is something that I don't personally see a lot is people. I feel like the people who do shadow work are the people who have been through some shit and they're like, I don't know how I got into this situation, but like I'm ready to get out of it. I've been in so much darkness that
Right.
there's no fear of walking even a little bit further into it because I've
Right.
already been through some shit.
Right.
So I think it really takes people's self-awareness and their desire to better themselves, not
Right.
better people outside of them, but better themselves.
I think that's the misconception. It's like, I'm gonna make everybody else better. And it's like, no, just work on you. And people see you and they're like, whoa shit, what are you doing? What are you doing that I'm not doing? That's kind of how people come aboard. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you so chipper
I
and
know.
happy and shit? And all your
Yeah,
memes are fluffy and shit. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I healed some shit within.
I know.
Maybe I'm doing better. I do feel like there's a lot of people that run from, I think a lot of people like to be in the victim energy where it's crazy. I think some of them like to be in it and some of them don't. Because in my early on in my path, I didn't know I was still a victim. I really did not know that I was still in victim mode. And I
Right.
did this self-development course. It was like a couple weekends. And I remember we were in this one session and the ladies just throwing these words at us. And we just have to sit there while they're throwing all of these negative words and see which ones are hitting us.
Hmm.
And I swear through the whole thing that the fucking word victim kept fucking pissing me off.
Huh.
And I was just like, why when they say it, is it fucking hitting me?
Interesting.
Like what? And I started bawling, crying, and I was just sitting there so pissed off. And then afterwards they were talking to me, kind of coaching me through it, and they were like letting us know why certain things were hitting. And I was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
I'm still a fucking victim.
But
Like, are
there's
you
some
serious?
people who will hear that and it will piss them off. And then they'll just throw up their hands and be like, oh, this is so stupid. This is stupid.
Right,
And they'll walk out.
right,
They're just not ready. And that's
right.
okay, you
Yeah.
know? But that's what it is.
Right.
It's the willingness to accept yourself exactly how you
Yeah.
are and not how you want other people to believe you are.
Right, right. Yeah, that was one of the hardest moments early on in this path for me. And again, I think we're always doing shadow work. We just don't know we're doing shadow work because I think I didn't come across shadow work until the terms. I don't think I came across it maybe until like later in 2020 somewhere.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's just a term for healing.
Right.
It's a term for therapy, basically, but you're mostly facilitating it yourself. Or, I mean, it's a little different because you're pinpointing specific things inside of yourself versus with therapy where you're talking about like other people and how to handle
Mm,
them, and shadow
right.
is how to handle yourself. Um,
Right.
yeah.
That's where I don't agree, not to knock therapy or, psychiatrists or what they do. I don't agree with that because you constantly go, and I've been to therapy myself. I've tried it, and one therapist annoyed the fuck out of me, so I stopped seeing her, because she kept trying to throw these Bible books at me, and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Did you not just hear what I'm like talking about?"
Yeah.
And then the other one just wrote me a prescription and it was like, take this, I'll see you back in a couple weeks. So I think I took the medication for a few months, which, yeah, I was all happy because I didn't give a fuck on the pills. You just kind of mask everything, right?
Right.
But as soon as I got off those pills, whoo, the crash was real
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
reality kind of hit me. So I don't agree with those therapy practices because, again, it focuses on everything outside of you, but
Exactly. And I
that's not going to
remember,
fucking help you.
yeah, I remember when I was in therapy and I'm very self-aware. So I would say things to kind of like put the blame on myself. That's what it sounded like to them. And they
Hmm.
would be like, you're taking on all of this. From what I hear, it was actually the other person's fault. This person did this wrong. You can't feel guilty. But it was always, I mean, it was literally like that. Everything that I would explain to them, they'd
Mm,
be like, oh no, that was their fault for sure. You were in the right.
right.
And it took like three different therapists all saying this. And I'm like, I understand what they're saying. I understand that they think I'm in the right, but I'm still bothered by it and it's still happening. So why?
Right.
Why is this a repeating pattern?
Right.
And why am I so triggered by it? Whether
Right.
they think I'm right or not, what is going on? And that's when I started looking more inward and being like, okay, forget what these other people did if they were right or wrong. How did I
Right.
get myself in that situation? How
Right.
did I handle it when I was in it? And what painful points did it trigger? And it, for me specifically, it always came up like my self-worth. It triggered my
Right.
desire to be special to people.
Mhm.
So that was the very first aspect of my shadow that I worked on.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
took a long time.
Ooh.
But I know that's like the biggest one. I started with the hardest one.
I'm gonna tell you, you guys, it really is never ending. And it's not to discourage anyone because it is such a beautiful thing, even on the levels as rough as it gets sometimes. Sometimes I'm so irritated with my higher self and my team. Um, but I have to be thankful because we could not take it all on in one session. It would be way too, some of us would be way too fucking much to take on all of it in one session, and boom, you're cured and done, and then the rest of your life would be boring as hell. um but unworthiness, I've that has been one of my biggest struggles in this life. It was one of the huge things, and not even realizing, because our ego, and ego, it does play a part in your shadow work. That ego will tell you, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, I blah 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 blah, but that doesn't really matter in the soul. Like, you could say whatever the fuck you want to with your mask on, but in the inside, you're dying. You feel like shit. You're doing these things to get that validation, or get your kudos, or whatever it is that you're doing. And it's like, why am I doing this? Why do I want people to even? Why do I even fucking care? And then I'd have a mask like, I don't give a fuck. you know, I don't give a shit. Fuck everybody. But deep down inside, I'm like dying and shit.
So that's actually exactly how the parts work that I mentioned earlier works. So basically, when you want something, but there's a part of you that's in resistance to it, that's
Mm,
two separate parts of you.
mm,
Neither of them are fully you, but they're just two different aspects. So I'll give you guys an example of what I worked on the other day. I'm trying to manifest some stuff financially. And there's another part of me that is in resistance to abundance.
mm,
So with the parts work, you actually take two different chairs and you ask yourself, which part do you think is more dominant? The part that wants the money or the part that is in resistance to believing you could have it? And the part that is the most dominant gets to pick their chair first. You sit down in that chair and you become only that part. Like, you literally sink into those feelings.
mm.
So for me, believe it or not, the part that was more dominant was the part that believed I could manifest, because I've been in the spiritual world for so long. I do believe in manifestation.
Great.
That one was more dominant for me. So this part of me that knows that I can have the dream job that I want, travel where I want, and help people. I had retreat centers somewhere in that manifestation, like a bunch of stuff. And so I sat down and I got into that persona only. And you basically let yourself talk. What does that person look like? What do they feel like? What's their age? Just all about their personality, anything that they want to say. And once you feel like they've completed what they want to say, then
Mm,
you stand up and you sit in the other seat. So that would be, for me, that day was the part that's in resistance. And you ask that part, like, what's your job? What do you think about this part of Ashley that wants to manifest money? And that part will say something like, I think she lives in a fantasy world.
mm.
And that's what came up for me. It was like, I was always told when I was a kid I lived in a fantasy world.
Right.
So that came up. And it was basically, this part of myself um, was protecting Ashley and protecting the other part, because it was like, we don't get that. And if they believe that they can get it, then they're going to be disappointed.
Right.
So I need to be in resistance and keep putting them down so that they don't get their hopes up.
Mm,
So yeah, then you actually like go back and forth between the two chairs and you talk to each other until you come to a middle ground, and you have to fully accept each other. So I got to a point where I said, basically like, you I'm not I wasn't angry at it. I said
Right.
I am so appreciative of you for looking out for me and for looking out for like Ashley as a whole. That must have been like such a hard job, because when I had to talk about like what that aspect of me looked like, she was
Mm,
old as fuck. She had like gray hair, she was hunched over. It was like a really just, life just took its toll on that part of me.
damn.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And I said, like, we appreciate you so much for giving yourself like that to protect us. But because you did that and we want to return the favor, like, we love you and we're aware of the potential consequences. We're aware that it could potentially not happen, but we can
Right,
handle it if it does. We've grown to a point where we're okay if what we think is supposed to happen doesn't happen.
right,
And we love you and we want you to be at peace now. And she, that part of me said okay, and we just kind of like meditated for a minute and relaxed and watched. You have to visualize that part of you just kind of like dissolving. It was incredible. It was really
that's
cool.
actually pretty dope. We might need to do that as a group thing.
Yeah.
We need to do that. I think that would be a pretty awesome, group exercise.